Hello, it's Friday the 15th of December and it's quadruple witching, which can be quite a volatile day. It's also a day of huge volume. A year ago in December 2022, the quadruple witching day was the biggest volume day in the S&P for 6 months. So it's quite an important day. I'm going to look at crypto first though, and we will take a look at what's hot and what's not so much. I think the first really big kind of moonshot altcoin for this season, or this new upcoming bull market has been BONK. And I just want to say to the people, there are some people that will have made a life-changing amount of money in this coin. If that is you, it really is important that you pay yourself, buy yourself something, take some profit. None of these meme coins go forever, and you can still keep some, but it's really important that you pay yourself something. So if I take a look first, I'll come to that in a minute, but let's take a look at where we are in Bitcoin. Now Bitcoin, I was a little bit worried that we might if we were going to stay in a downtrend, that this 50% level and this high here would keep us moving lower. Instead, what we have done here in Bitcoin is a pretty potentially looking like three-wave correction. So first wave, second wave. They're not quite equal measured moves, but back underneath these moving averages sets us up for another swing lower. And as I said before, I think Bitcoin kind of went first, got a little bit ahead of itself, and I think that we could see some sideways movement into the end of the year until we get that ETF announcement. And because I feel like Bitcoin's got a bit overbought, and because of the reaction we had before when Bitcoin futures were launched, I really do think that the best way to trade now this ETF announcement is in Coinbase. I think that because Coinbase is the custodian for so many of these ETFs and will be the custodian whether you buy or you sell Bitcoin, it's all volume for them. I do think that potentially Coinbase is a better trade at the moment. So this is where we are with Bitcoin. This looks like a three-wave correction to me. Now, I am wrong. Let's put my Heiken Ash on, because if everything has a really bullish day and stocks are so bullish, this is really kind of consolidating, isn't it, around these moving averages. I don't want to draw it like that. I'm going to take this high here like this and say kind of this 43,500 level in the futures is really important resistance, and if we pull back and then break above it, we're going to retest the highs at 45,250 in the futures. We look at the same pattern going on in spot Bitcoin. Right, I'm on the wrong page here. Let's take a look at BTC spot Bitcoin. Then we see the same pattern, and we're struggling here at the 200 moving average, what looks like a three-wave correction. Another way we could look at it is this way. We're underneath this 236. We've done this big bounce. This is the first leg. I think that we could do the same, a little bit more sideways, and potentially we mirror this first swing lower. Not saying for sure. I just say at the moment this is bunched up sideways, could break either way, and today's a very volatile day. We need to be a little bit careful. So I think if we break down and lose these moving averages, 40,650 in spot Bitcoin is the support, and 38,900 if we do another equal measured move lower. I would be a little bit more cautious about that, because that would put us underneath this daily 20 moving average. And this daily 20 moving average has really been support since the middle of October. I doubt that we would lose it ahead of the ETF, but if we did, then we're headed back lower to these highs, potentially also in the daily 50. I think if we get to 38,000, it's a pretty good buying opportunity ahead of that ETF, because I think we should get a little bit of a bounce. Okay, so let's move on to what's super hot. So I have to say that most altcoins, there are a few obviously that are moonshots, but most altcoins are in this choppy sideways correction at the moment, and some of them are approaching really big levels. Let's take a look at this BONK. Now BONK, I have had to go to log scale. If I put it on, it's gone so far that we have to go look at it, the chart and log scale, because unless you're looking at normal prices, it's really hard to see what we did lower down when we were further back. If I go to the daily chart though and zoom in here, this was our first 5-wave rally, and this was our first 3-wave correction. So we went 1, 2, 3, and then up we went. So I'm measuring from here. Now I'm going to go back to the weekly, and when I measure like this, so I was looking at the 61.8. In fact, let's go on to the daily, because you can see that we got above this 61.8 level. We paused at it. We blasted through this. We got to the 1.618 and kind of was messy and sideways. You can see it a little bit more clearly on the daily, this 1.618. And so for me, this 2.618 was my next upside target, and that was at 180,000. So we said in the group, if we got above 125,000, 181,000, and then this 4.236 fib extension level is the next target. It's at 27,000. So a bit like here, I kind of need it to hold on this weekly close as support if we're going to keep going higher to the next fib projection level, which is 417,400. Again, as I said at the beginning, if you've made a outrageous amount of money, I really would pay yourself some, because if you miss it coming all the way back, that will be very painful, and painful psychologically. Now for me, I think if we look at this on the daily, I think we've kind of validated this 236 fib level. If we look at it on the 4-hour, we're holding above it, and if I look at it on the hourly, that's exactly where we are, holding above. Resistance now, support, support, support. So on the hourly, as long as we don't close underneath it, if we make another leg higher, 416,000 is my target. If we were to break down here in a bigger pullback, I think that we could, let's go back to the daily here. If we're going to keep going high, remember when you have these big kind of thrust candles with really, really long bodies, 50% retrace of these candles kind of are the Maribosu line where you kind of want to hold. And here, that's at 18,600, and 18,000 is a back test of this 2.618 level, which we blasted through. So for me, if we don't hold 271,000, we are likely to come back to 185,000, 181,000. That's the zone. So that's what I'm looking at on the hourly, and just be careful. Now at the moment, this is just a choppy sideways correction, but were we to get underneath this level and it become resistance, that's going to be the problem. That's where we come. Now, sometimes you can go sideways through these levels, can't you? We can do a little bit of this, but underneath and finding resistance, that would be bearish for BONK. Okay, so those are my levels. Let's take a look at Solana, because BONK is the first meme coin on the Solana, and Solana has really, really benefited from it. So I've got the, I've got my, let's go back, put Solana here from refresh and see where we are with Sol. Now I'm going to put this on the weekly, and you can see we are doing pretty well in Solana. But if we look at where we are on these retrace levels, we're kind of in no man's land in the middle of this swing here, and these fibs are not working. So I'm going to do from the high retrace fibs like this and see where we are, because for me the 236 fib is the most important fib. It confirms your reversal in Fibonacci terms, and it's the one that makes me say, have I drawn it correctly? And when I look at this, it kind of really does. Look at this. If we look at this on the 4-hour, you can see that this was textbook resistance first time, but we didn't reverse. We did a 3-wave pullback to the previous swing low. That's very bullish, and kept going. And here we are holding this 236 fib. I know it looks bad on the 4-hour, but here you can see on the daily we have not closed underneath it. So we're going to be a little bit concerned, obviously, if we close underneath this 236 fib again, particularly on the weekly, which is Sunday night for me. So as long as we can hold above this 236 fib level, which is 67.45, Solana for me has more upside, and I'm looking for 104 next. But if we lose, what happens if we lose 67.45? Well, when I zoom out here, I think this is a very nice 5-wave rally, right? And when you reverse like that after a 5th wave, the bottom of this previous wave 4 is where you're likely to come back to. And that means in Solana back to 51 or 50. And those kind of round numbers often work big time in crypto. So 50 is what I would say. And if I do fib retraces all the way from this low, that's kind of around that 38.2 level. So we can make this pretty simple, can't we? And say if we lose 62, we're going to go to 52. But really for me, on a daily and weekly close, 67.25 is the most important. And I think if BONK doesn't hold that 4.236 extension, we may not hold this important 67.25 level in Sol, and potentially we see a bigger correction. So if you made an enormous amount of money in Solana, don't give it all back. I don't think you will. I think this is trending pretty nicely, and when we come back to here, I'm expecting a 5th wave and another, and that really nice swing to 100. So if you miss Sol, that would be quite a nice opportunity. Now there are some other coins that have been doing really well. INJ is one of them. Let's see if we've got INJ here. This is a really hard one to see kind of where we are, because I feel like we're making really good moves. I was looking for these previous highs around 26 and this equal measured move level to be resistance, and we closed above it. Here we are all the way at the 1272 extension at 33.14, and we're having a little bit of a pullback here. Here's how we look on the daily, quite a long tail. I think potentially we're going to see either some sideways correction or consolidation before we continue higher, and the next upside, if we can hold above this level at 33.14, is 41. But here short term, we could see a little bit of a pullback, and we could pull back to retest this equal measured move level that we blasted through without kind of any acknowledgement. So 26 for me is kind of important support. Underneath it, we could come all the way back to these swing lows and potentially all the way back to the moving averages. So again, this is another one, you know, sometimes when you put your 236 fib retrace all the way from that lows, you know, that gives you such a big amount that it can pull back. Sometimes you don't want to do it. But when I look at, I have to say, when I look at this from the low that we made on the 22nd of November, this looks like a very nice bounce correction, and I really do think this may be a wave 4, and we should see another swing higher. So yeah, it's not a bearish reversal yet in terms of kind of 4-hour, hourly, or anything else. Now we are at pretty key support here on the hourly with these hourly moving averages. We could go a little bit lower, maybe 28.50, this swing low here, and then have another go. But if we were to bounce up, make a lower high, double top or something like that, again in INJ, just if you've made an enormous amount, you should pay yourself some. Keep another soldier in the fight, but pay yourself something for this. You can always buy some back. Okay, let's take a look at Fetch as well, which is looking pretty impressive. But Here in Fetch, this is a weekly chart of Fetch. This goes from the highs we made at the end of 2021 to the lows that we made in November 2022, and we have reached a pretty important level, 61 point, almost 61.8 retrace, but most importantly, let's hide that. We have reached this equal measured move level where this swing and this swing are equal. Shoots from there. 71.64. We need to hold above that to challenge that 61.8 level and keep going. I think if we can keep going and hold above 71.64, we have 86.86 and 1.059, which is basically 1.06. As a 1.618 of this first swing, that would be very bullish. If we again put the fib retrace levels on from this high to this low, this is the 61.8, and that's quite interesting because that gives us two levels of support if we end up pulling back here in Fetch. So it gives us 0.627 and 0.5, and underneath 0.5 that would say that this whole rally that we've made from the start, from the end of November, is corrective. And when you have a corrective rally like this, quite often the most common retraces are 786 and would mean all the way back down here into the 0.2s and those moving averages. So be a little bit careful in Fetch. This is a pretty critical resistance zone between 0.71 and 0.76. So if we watch the price action here, I'm looking on the alley, we've literally only just got here. And at first glance, it looks like here's our equal measured move level. It looks like it was a resistance, and we're holding above. And I do think we've got room to go a little bit further up to this 61.8. But remember, I think we'll see a bigger pullback underneath 0.7. Okay, so looking quite interesting in Fetch. And you know, quite a lot of these AI related coins are pretty interesting levels. Here is Rose. And this one's looking really bullish in Rose as well, but I'm a little bit concerned because, let's put this on again, from this is the most recent 5-wave swing that we're inside of. The high August 2022, low December 2022, so last year's high to low, and here we are. All of these other fib levels have been pretty important too, and at this point here we are at what is known as a bearish Gartley pattern. Okay, now this isn't a trend line because we've only got 2 touches, so I'm going to take that off for a second. If you have a first swing to a 61.8 and a deep pullback, and then a second swing to a 786, which we haven't quite tagged, it's at 0.098, that is a textbook Gartley pattern, and it means trend resumption, so we could continue lower. We really need to kind of hold above this if we're going to keep going higher. We challenge these highs and then move on higher. And if we were to move on higher, I'm going to zoom all the way out here. I'm going to look for 236 retrace of this entire drop, which gives us an upside target. If we continue higher and take out these highs around 0.11, our target becomes 0.16. But at the moment, this is just kind of, yeah, maybe one of those tricky pause levels there. Again, I'm going to put that most recent high to low in. And you can see, you know, by this, okay, when I put these swibs on from this high to low, this validation here at this 236 for me kind of makes it important. We're quite stretched away from these moving averages, so 0.0985 becomes a level we really need to get above and hold above in Rose if we're going to keep going higher. Otherwise we could see a little bit of a bigger pullback and back to retest 0.084 and below 0.084 I'm afraid we kind of confirm that 3-wave correction. Okay, let's take a look at Ocean, because this is another one that has been super mover. Now, new highs. So first off, this week, whereas last week we failed at this important 236 fib level, which we also failed at in February, it looks like we might be able to close above it, 0.546. I'm really hoping we are. However, at these previous highs, we could see some people taking profit, which sinks us. Now we've broken above this today. I want to see an ocean, even if we pause at this previous high, I want to see this 0.546 hold as support if we're going to keep going higher, and this really is a breakout. So that's the level I'm watching. And yeah, if we do, then again, let's go to the weekly, zoom out. We've got some pretty interesting levels to have as targets. First off, there's this opening swing high, which here is around 0.7, which is really interesting highs and lows, previous lows. So 0.7 would be my first target, and then 0.81 would be the next fib target. Now that 0.7 level, if I bring this down here, that 0.7 level from this high to this low is 50% retrace. So that will be a big deal if I've drawn the fibs wrong. And it's possible, don't know which the market is looking at until we get there. It's possible that we overshoot here, we get to 0.62, then we're going to look for this previous low to become previous support, become resistance, resistance becomes support, pull back and keep going. So 0.7 really I think is my first target, and 0.81 and that round number 1 after that, looking pretty good. Let's just do one more thing and go measure for this first swing and project it from here. So this is just a simple 3-wave rally. 0.7 is the equal measured move, and the 1.272 extension is 0.81, and the 1.618 is that round number 1. So that kind of adds weight to those 3 upside target levels if we can keep going higher and breaking out in ocean. And then obviously, you know, we want it to go. It's not a meme coin, unfortunately, but that's what I'm looking at. Now RUNE is another one that I have been trading. Let's take a look at where we are in RUNE. I'm going to go to the weekly first of all. So I'm one of these people that bought this 236 fib here in RUNE, 5.6. We've come back to test it. I'm really looking for this to be support here, and I'm going to be dead wrong if we break down underneath it. It's been a little bit sideways all week. 4 inside bars in the row, you know, nasty drop, and then inside bars. Unfortunately, that keeps us bearish, and for me it keeps us bearish unless we can get back above this 20 moving average for bigger correction. A bigger correction, I always look at horizontal levels rather than a channel, would mean, you know, back to these lows and potentially around here. I'm going to look at these lows. One more swing lower, back to this swing low, or maybe back to here. Keeps us trending higher. And yeah, so it would be super bullish, a daily close above 6, which would be that daily 20 moving average. If we look at it on lower time frames, it's really hard to see what's going on here because we've got this really kind of tough sideways range. We've got this double bottom here, which I think looks really good. But you know, when you have a double bottom, you really kind of have to break those highs to confirm it, and we haven't got there. So that's actually 6.2, isn't it, that we need to really close above to get out of this sideways consolidation. And like Bitcoin, you know, we could do a little bit more of it. So I'm watching RUNE. Hope that's useful. Let me know if there's anything else you